What's up you guys, it's Eugene here from VideoCorp, and in this video tutorial I want to talk about some really important dashboard design principles to make your dashboards look really good, and I also want to practice those to build this Netflix dashboard together. So let's jump straight into it. So the first thing I'm going to say is that I've written a blog article about those dashboard design principles, and I highly encourage you to read this because this video tutorial is really just a practice exercise for the principles that I discussed. I'm going to repeat some of those principles again in this video tutorial, but it will really help you if you first read the article, because I might miss a couple. The second thing I want to say is that this tutorial is mostly about design rather than the interface of Power BI. So if you're new to Power BI, it might be a little bit difficult for you to follow because some familiarity with Power BI is kind of needed for this one. You can still follow it because I'm going to show you everything I do on my screen, but it just might take you a little bit more time to complete the project. If you're new to Power BI, I have a different dashboard built-in tutorial, which I recommend you do first and then come back to this one. But if you're already familiar with Power BI, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so now that we've got our file in front of us, let's start building it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a really nice wallpaper to it. I really like wallpapers with gradients, so something like this, where black kind of goes into red gradually. When you set wallpapers, make sure that you've got your canvas background completely transparent, because if it's not transparent, it's going to look like this. So yeah, let's just do that. The second thing you want to do is to add a logo. So when you're building a dashboard for your employer or for a client, I always like having a logo. It just makes it look more tailored to the user. So I'm going to insert a logo, there it is, and I'm going to add it here. Top left is a very typical position for a logo. Now this one looks small, so I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. So I will adjust it to fill so that it fills all of the space, and there you go. So when we are starting to build our dashboards, we need to think about dividing them into sections. And you see, I already have my logo on top left. So the few potential ways I can go with this, I can work along this vertical line and add some visuals here so that I have a section underneath my logo. I also have the line to the right of my logo, which I can use as a section for my dashboard. Honestly, it's not a lot of space underneath our logo, so probably we can turn the space to the right from the logo into a section. And you know, in this one I'm going to turn it into a filter section. So we are going to add filters later. For now, let's just leave it blank, but keep in mind that we want to add filters here. Now the second thing that you want to do is you want to start designing your dashboard from the high level of detail. Before we start building the visuals for our report, let's just review the data quickly. So in our data, we've got the show ID, we've got the type of the show, which is either a TV series or a movie, we've got titles, actors who played in the show, we've got countries, date, something was added on Netflix. Also, we've got the release year, rating, genre. We have the duration in either seasons for a TV show or minutes if this is a film. And we also got just some calendar type of information, the month that a TV series or a show was added, the year, duration, group, which is like that, and just all the genres in a single column for each TV show. So now that we're familiar with the data, let's start adding some analysis. And we want to start with the highest level of detail. So the highest level of detail for us would be just the number of shows. This is like the highest level metric that you can use for your report. So I've got this measure here, which is just the count of show ID. So I'm going to pull it on the canvas like this, and I will change it to be a card. Oh, there we go. So this is my very first card, and I'm going to place it here. Now I can start formatting this card now, and I really want it to be in red, in line with the color of the logo. So I'm going to color the callout value in red and also the category label. So we've got it like this. Now with the second card, we want to drill down into our data. So what is more granular than the number of shows? It's probably the number of countries from which those shows come. So let's do something with that. So I'm going to Control-C and Control-V for this card so that I copy it over. And now we've got it like this. So I'm going to delete this one, and I will add the number of countries. It's just quicker if you copy and paste the cards, because you don't have to apply the formatting steps again and again. So now I'm going to add another card, so Control-C, Control-V, and you see I'm aligning them to a single line. So what is more granular than the number of countries? Probably the number of directors. Yeah. And now the last card I'm going to add, Control-C, Control-V, and move it to the right. It's the number of actors. I'm going to edit this card a little bit more, so I will change it to none so that we can see the full number, and there we go. So essentially what we did here is we are drilling down into our data as we move from left to right, and this is one of the principles I talked about in the article. Essentially, people read your dashboards in a Z-like fashion. So first they start from the top left, they move to right with their eyes, and then they switch their eyes to the next line. It's the same way as you would read a book. So we need to build some logical connection between visuals from left to right, and this logical connection usually comes in the form of drilling down into data and going more granular. So now that we've discussed this principle, we're going to use it everywhere in our dashboard. Before we move on to the next line, I'm going to essentially hold my mouse and select all the cards like this. You can also control and left click in order to select the card, and I'm just gonna move it to the right like this. So now it's a little bit more symmetrical. My cards have the same space from the left as from the right. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to analyze how many shows and how many movies we have. So I'm going to pull the type to the canvas, and I'm going to use the number of shows metric here. So when you've got two categories only, it's totally appropriate to use a pie chart or to use donut chart if you want to. I'm personally not a fan of those because they take a lot of space, and it just takes away space from the other visuals. So I'm going to use something different. I'm going to select the 100% stacked bar chart, and I will move this type from y-axis to the legend, like this. So now I'm going to move this up. I'm going to stretch it so that it takes all the space, and I just need to do a little bit more formatting on this because the black is not visible. So I'll go to Format, I'll go to Bars, and I will change this TV show from black to this shade of red. Now it looks more aligned with the Netflix logo. So another principle which I talked about is removing all kinds of noise from the visual. So this is the text that doesn't add any meaning to our visual. This kind of text could be those numbers across the axis. It's the name of the axis, which really, it's just not allowing our visual to look tidy. So we're going to clean it up. So I'm going to delete the title of the x-axis. I'm going to delete the axis itself. I'm then going to go to General and actually to Effects and delete the background, because I can see that it's a different color than the wallpaper. So I've done that. Now I'm going to move my legend to be in the middle. You don't have to do it every time, but for this dashboard I'm going to do it because why not? You see the text of the legend also doesn't add any value to our visual, so we're going to remove the text like this. And now I'm going to move my title to be just above my legend, so we will align it to the center. Now the title really needs to describe what this visual is showing, because unless your title describes it, there is really no way for the user to understand. They have to assume. So I'm going to call it TV shows versus movies. Okay, I'm actually going to call it movies versus TV shows because my legend mentions movies first. So this is a little bit more in line with the legend. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some data labels. And there you go. So I need to edit those. I need the values to be in white. And another thing that really is not adding value here is decimal points. It's just making it more difficult to read. So I'm going to delete those. I'm going to go to data labels, values, value decimal points, and set it to 0. So now it's a lot easier to read. 70% is basically the same as 69 point something. So in this case, there is no need for us to show the decimal places. I'm going to just reduce the size of this, just so that we can use it for other visuals. We can use the space for other visuals, but I still want to show the data labels so make sure that you're still showing those. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to analyze by year kind of how many shows and movies Netflix add. So I'm going to pull this year added on the canvas. I will change it to table. Instead of summing this, I will change it to don't summarize, like this. And I will add the number of shows. Okay, cool. So now we've done that. I'm going to use the stacked column chart. I personally think for trends, it often looks better than line chart. Like, it's not wrong to use a line chart, but if you've got multiple categories like this in your line chart, it's just a bit more difficult for people to read. So I'm just going to demonstrate it to you. So we'll format the lines. TV show should be in this color. So yeah, it's just a bit difficult to read, in my opinion, and we want to see these two together. So I'm going to change the visual type to stacked column chart. And now it's just a little bit easier to read, in my opinion. So let's do some formatting the same way as we did on the other visual. You see, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the background, because again, it's covering up my wallpaper. Second thing I want to do, I want to add the data labels, and I want to make them white. So, okay, I've done that. And I also want to add total labels so that it's visible, you know, how many TV shows and movies Netflix adds by year in total. So now that we've done that, think about the repeating information that you're showing on your visual. For example, your title says by year added, and this axis title is also saying year added. So we don't really need the axis title, and this information is far easier to read in the visual title. So I'm going to go to my x-axis and format it out, so like this. The second thing I really don't need is this y-axis labels. You know, I'm already showing my data labels, and it's far more convenient to look at the bar and immediately read what the number is. So I don't want my users to kind of shift their eyes to the left and read this, and then shift their eyes to the right, and then try to work out at what length the bar chart is. So I'm going to go to the y-axis. I'll remove the title, I'll remove the axis itself, and now my visual takes a bit more space, it's easier to read. So the last thing I need to do on this is just to shift the title to the center, like this. I will also edit the legend. I will shift it to top center and delete the title. Okay, so the last thing I need to do is I need to name this visual in a bit more descriptive way. So I'm going to call it movies and TV shows by year added. Okay, there you go. So now we already got a couple of visuals on our canvas, and I just wanna direct your attention to the colors that we're using. So we're using consistent colors for the movies, and we're also using consistent colors for TV shows. So it's really important because we're teaching our users to associate this shade of red with TV shows and this shade of red with movies. So it's going to be important for the next line of visuals that we create. And this is going to be the movies by duration. So I'm going to take the duration group column, and I'm going to count the number of shows, and now I'm going to filter this by type. So I will pull type here, and I will select movies only, like this. Beautiful. So we've got a few blanks, so for this tutorial we'll just filter them out. And now I'm going to change the visual type from the table to be clustered column chart, like this. So this chart is very familiar to any data visualization user. It's just a histogram. So if you ever looked at the normal distribution bar graphs, you know, those are very common in the business world, and people already know that they're showing distribution. So because this association is there already, we just need to build our data visualization on top of it. So I'm going to make this visual take only half of space, like this. And now I will do some formatting on this visual to make it more consistent with the others. So I will go to Format, General. I will remove the background, which is in the Effects section. Now I will go to Visual and add data labels. I will also remove the y-axis title and the axis itself. And now I need to name this visual something descriptive. So I will name it number of movies by duration, like this, and I will align this to the center. I also noticed that my x-axis is here, still present, and this is another example of duplicate information where we've got information in the title and in the axis. So I'm going to clean it up. I will go to Visual, x-axis, and remove this. So now my bars take a bit more space. I also don't exactly like that my numbers are in thousands, so I will do some editing on that. I will go to Data Labels and Values. I'm going to change the display units to none to make it more consistent with the visual above. So now that we've got number of movies by duration, I want to analyze the number of shows by duration. So we've got here our seasons column, which I'm going to pull, change it to table, change this to don't summarize, and now I'm just going to add the number of shows measure. So I'm going to filter out all the movies from here. So I will pull the type to my filters, and I only want to show the TV shows, like that. I'm going to use the same visual type as for the visual to the left, just to make this line consistent as well. And now I can immediately see that Power BI does not assign the label to every bar, which is kind of a problem because like I need to hover to this bar, to this tiny bar, just to know what it's showing me, and now I know it's 7 seasons. So I'm going to correct that. I will go to Format, I will go to X-axis, and instead of continuous, I will set it to categorical, like this. So now I've got my seasons everywhere in the dashboard. So I will also remove the title of the axis. I will go to the Y-axis and I will remove the title. I will remove the axis itself. Now I'll go to data labels and turn them on. And I'm also going to give a proper name to my visual. I will call it number of TV shows by season. So number of TV shows by season. I will align this to the center, and I also need to get rid of the background. So I will go to Effects and turn the background off. Now it looks good already, but remember what I told you before about kind of teaching our users that this shader thread is for movies and this shader thread is for TV shows. So I think it's worth for us to color this visual in a different shader thread. So we'll go to Visual, we'll go to Columns and set it to red, like this. So now, even without reading the visual title, our users will know that this is the bar graph describing the number of shows. So we're nearly there. I'm just going to add a couple of more visuals, and the next one I'm going to add is the genre, and I will add the number of shows. So in order to present this data, I will use the horizontal bar chart like this. The reason for it is because I've got long data labels here. Not data labels, but axis labels. So if I use the vertical line chart, it's just really difficult to read. You kind of have to twist your neck in order to read those labels. So, you know, making it horizontal is just making it so much easier to read. Okay, so now I'm going to do some editing to make it consistent. Basically remove the title, remove the axis, remove the title for Y-axis. Okay, I will go to General, Effects and remove the background. I will now call it a little bit more descriptive. So I'm going to say movies and TV shows by genre, like this, and align it to the center. I'm also going to add data labels because we've done it everywhere else. So just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to add those, and I will also change the values from thousands to none, like this. The last visual I'm going to add is going to be a table. So this is just a table to let our users scroll through the data, and it's going to be the most granular level of detail. So the most granular level of detail is going to be title. So we want to say that this title, it's it's a movie or it's a TV show. We also want our users to read what the genre is, and we want to know what the release year is. I will change it to Don't Summarize. And maybe we'll just add a cast column so that they can see what the actors are. Now, as you can see, this table is taking a lot of space and people have to scroll horizontally, which is something that I don't like. So I'm going to make the columns a bit smaller. Yes, you probably have to wrap text in order to fit everything in, but it's not a problem. So there we go. Now I'm going to change the style of this table from default to none, and I also need to go to effects and remove the background like this. So now it's perfect, and people can scroll through this in order to see what movies we have in our data set. So now that we've added our last visual, I'm just going to call it something. So we'll go to General, Title. I will align the title to the center, and I will call it Shows and Movies Explorer, like this. Now that we have all the visuals on the canvas, I just want to reflect on our dashboard. So we're starting from top left. We're showing the most granular level of information. We're showing just a summary basically with the cards. So people read through our summary from left to right. Now they're switching their eyes to the second line, and here they start reading it from left to right. So they get to know that we have 70% of movies, 30% of TV shows. And now at this point they've remembered that movies is this color of red and TV shows is this color of red. They shift their eyes further and we drill down again. So now we're showing trends for movies and shows. They switch their eyes to the next line and we drill down even further. Now we're analyzing duration. So not just the number of shows, but duration. So we do that for the movies, we do that for the seasons. We switch to the next line and we're drilling down even more to present the number of titles, by genre. And the most granular level of information, which is the table, is in the bottom right. So this is how it should be. Most high level, top left, most granular, top right. So now we've added all the visuals. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some filters. So for the filters, I'm going to use type like this. I'll change it to slider, to slicer. I will change this slicer from vertical list to drop down like this. And I will make it smaller so that I can fit some other slicers on the canvas. Now, I don't like that the text here is in white and everything else is in red, so it's just a bit of inconsistency. I'm going to correct that. I will change my slicer header to be red. I will call it type, and I'm going to change this slider values. I will make them red as well, and I will change the background to be black. So now that somebody is opening it, everything is consistent with the background. I'm going to Control-C and Control-V so that I don't have to do the same formatting steps again. And now, instead of type, I'm going to use, well, let's use the release year, like this. So the release year I'm going to actually present in this between style, so that we have a slider, and we just need to do some more formatting on this. So the color of the slider should be red, the values should be red as well. So now people can select only movies from 80s to present time, or they can go back. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is Control-C the type and Control-V, move it to the right. And here we are going to give them the selection by genre. So remove this and put genre. I will change the slider header to reflect what we're showing. Now, finally, I'm going to Control-C, Control-V, and the most granular level of detail is going to be title. So you see, we're using the same principles of drilling down with every visual that we go from left to right. Actually, one thing you might do though is you might move the slider to the left and move the filter to the right, just so that it's a bit more consistent, you know. So we're using the same type of visual across. The last designer touch I'm going to do on this is I'm going to insert the shape, and I will insert a rectangle. I will move it to top left and make it cover all of my filters. I will then get rid of the fill. I will introduce a shadow, and the color of my shadow should be red. I'm going to change the transparency maybe to 30, just see how it looks. Okay, it's not bad, but we can do better. So actually, I know why it is. In the style, for some reason, in the shape, it doesn't look as good as if you do it in the general. So if you go to Effects and introduce a shadow here, and now color this one in red, it has a lot more substance for some reason. So I'm just going to continue editing my shadow. I will go to Effects, Shadow, and at this point I want to customize my shadow. I want to change the transparency from 70 to 30, like this, and now I have a proper glow effect for my filter menu. Okay, now that we've moved it up, it looks really good. So I'm gonna go to Format and send this shape to back so that it doesn't block all the other visuals. Now that I click away from it, okay, I can see that my cards are kind of covering it. So I'm gonna make my cards a bit smaller. There you go. Okay, our dashboard is perfect. So this is your Netflix dashboard, and now everything looks really good. I really hope that you learned something from this tutorial. If you did, then please leave a like or add a comment if you think that some formatting should be different. Also, please subscribe so that you don't miss another tutorial, and well, I'll see you in the different videos. Goodbye.